You could tell us about the sentence today, what it means, and how justice is being served.
Well, Mr. Minichiello was sentenced to 3.5 to 7 years at the New Hampshire State Prison, which is the maximum sentence for Class B felony kidnapping. 6 months of that minimum will be suspended based on whatever sex offender counseling is ordered, as well as continued for the duration of his parole, conditioned on no contact with Malin or her children. So, in essence, he will be eligible for parole after serving 3 years, and then will remain on for the maximum of 7. So, he was sentenced to a maximum sentence less the 6 months, which is necessary under recent New Hampshire case law in order to impose a no-contact order.
Do you think that this was fair? You know, this sentence was fair considering the crime that he committed?
I believe a sentence that's 6 months shy of the maximum, based on a necessity for suspending a portion of the minimum sentence in order to maintain that no-contact order is a fair sentence. It's also exactly what the state requested under these circumstances, and I think it speaks to what the judge saw in terms of the gravity of the offense and the aggravating circumstances involved.
What's it like for you as a woman to prosecute a case like this? I mean, really horrific set of circumstances.
I mean, I don't think it's any different for me based on my gender. I think the facts speak for themselves, and I think the judge, who was also someone who sat on the case and appreciated the same things.
Can you speak to that, the ability, the judge seemed to really, he said this wasn't an acquittal, and he said consciously, I will consider this other information. Your read on that, and you know, you talked about some of the horrifying things she went through, hers even more physical.
Yes.
And you talked about the padlocking of the door, and it seemed, but the judge even articulating, as did you, the inclusion of the fact that he lost a daughter and the grief a parent would feel. Your sense, again, of the state's sort of understanding that, but again, taking into account what he did.
I think there's no doubt that Mr. Minichiello suffered a tragic loss in his life when his daughter died unexpectedly, and I have no desire to take away from that as an experience for him, but I'm also not inclined to, accept it as an excuse for the type of behavior that he engaged in on 2 separate occasions after that. I think the judge was pretty clear about that as well. People suffer losses, tragic losses, all of the time, and they don't necessarily go out and commit felonies in response to that. I think what Mr. Minichiello's attorney was saying was that he was 2 different people before and after that incident. But as I stated, I can only guess that Mr. Minichiello would be someone who would be just as horrified if somebody had committed one of these acts against one of his own children. So I think the state's point was exactly what the court's point was, which is just that it is not an excuse for this type of behavior. That's about it.
What do you